We are live. Welcome to The Huddle. The Huddle is where I sit down with successful people from the world of sport and coaching.
I want to thank our
It's to learn more about their journey to greatness. Why do I have these conversations? Because success always leaves clues. JT here. I wanted to thank you, whether you are watching with us live, whether you are watching the replay, whether you are listening to our conversation on the podcast today. Thank you so much for choosing to be here with me and my special guest today. I'm really enthused for my special guest today. Again, he was able to carve out some time to speak with us and share his journey to greatness. My guest in the huddle today is the head strength and conditioning coach at Georgia Tech University. And I'm really enthused to have him join us today. My guest in the huddle today is Coach Louis Caralla. How are you today, Coach?
Oh, doing great. I really appreciate you having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, you know, Coach, I think I've been hearing you on a number of different podcasts and really enthused for this conversation today.
Yeah, me too.
So thank you so much again, Coach. Just want to take a moment just to send you some gratitude for carving out some time with us to share a bit of your journey today. So thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. So one of the first things I'd like to do in the huddle is to remind people that life is a game and that games are supposed to be fun. So I'm curious from you, what is maybe an interesting fact, maybe some may call a quirk, that maybe a lot of people don't know about you that you would feel, comfortable sharing with our community?
Man, that's a good question. I'm not that guy that's gonna like be wild and full of energy at my house. Like I'm like that at work. Yeah. But I got a soft spot for all my kids, and my wife's in charge of the house, and I know that. So yeah, I guess that's what I would say. Okay. So it sounds like home, you kind of sort of dial it back a little bit and just a little more being at home. Yeah.
I love it. Okay. So Coach, you have a fascinating journey, which again, I've been learning more about, right? You were a successful athlete and you've transitioned to having a successful career in the strength and conditioning at multiple universities. So I'm curious, what has been your biggest takeaway that you've really gotten from all these experiences in sport?
I find that the biggest thing that I can give people is just, if you're going to do something, believe in yourself. If you're going to go for it, you really got to stick to it, or it's just not going to go your way. There's a ton of people in the field that you're probably pursuing that are a lot higher ranked than you at first. That's fine. You can't make a big deal out of that, but you do have to stay confident. You do have to not get frustrated and just keep moving forward, because I've told a bunch of people this story. I've been fired twice as a head strength coach, my first two head jobs. My third time, I really thought it was my last chance. And then the greatest thing ever happened. So it wasn't because I changed who I was or I changed everything that I was going through. It was, I kept believing, and as hard as it was to live through, that's the story behind it. And I know that's not the easiest thing to do sometimes, but you got to keep living through it and believe in yourself, even when everyone else stops.
Oh, and I love the simplicity of that, Coach. And again, I do my best to live by that. Keep it simple. And I love just how you talk about, like, you have to believe in yourself before others will believe in you, right? So I'm curious, was that a lesson that you've always known? Was that something you've always understood? Or was there a particular coach or mentor that really instilled that simple idea into you?
I would say both. I worked for great people. I wouldn't be here without those great people. No question in my mind. I continue to thank them to this day. I take values to work every day with me that I learned from them. But at the same time, my playing career before I met any coach was it wasn't easy. You know, I had to earn everything. I'm not the tallest guy. I'm not the biggest guy, but I had to earn it through grit, hard work, belief, confidence, leadership, hard work, extra on the side when no one's watching. So I didn't get my way my first 3 years of college. You know, it wasn't easy, battled injuries, came back, all that stuff. But yeah, it's just all this stuff. It comes from my dad as well. Like, hard work's going to pay off, but no one's going to tell you when. And he's always told me that. And it's just stuck with me because, you know, I'm the biggest fan of movies like Rocky and Rudy and, you know, just underdog stories that there's no way that they can get this done, but they do. So always in the mindset of, that's fine if you don't want to believe in me, but my belief is way stronger in myself than it ever was from you.
No, and I love what you're sharing, right? Is that idea that, you know, it's easy to believe in yourself when things are going well, right? But it takes another level of mental discipline when challenges, adversities, and obstacles pop up. And that sort of reminded me of something I've heard you share a number of times on a different podcast, is this idea of, you know, and I'll paraphrase it, but, you know, can you sprint when the end is undetermined, right? So I love that. So I'm curious, where did that idea sort of, you know, come from?
There is no guarantees in life, and you work really hard, it's still not guaranteed. There's a lot of things that you're going to be afraid of that you're going after. It's going to look intimidating, like the top of a mountain. If you're trying to hike the top of a mountain and you keep looking up, it's going to intimidate you, and you're going to realize how far you have to go, and you're going to overthink, and you're going to get overwhelmed. But what I've learned is just being overwhelmed is overrated. And it's just so true. If you just keep your head down and take one step at a time, like, you don't know how long it's going to take for you to get to the top. You don't know all these things you're going to have to go through along the way. You just deal with them one at a time. And that's truly what I've lived through in this profession, in my playing career. And I feel like the best people that understand are the ones that aren't afraid to just go. You know, they're not afraid of what everyone's going to say about them or what everyone's going to think. They just sprint. And it's all filled with fear and anxiety. But in my personal experience, when fear and anxiety turns into confidence, you're a dangerous person.
Yeah. I love that you're talking about confidence, right? And that's something that, you know, I'm a firm believer that confidence has no competition, right? Like, when you are truly embody confidence and it's truly embedded in you, you know, again, it's that's where the magic happens. So I'm curious from you, again, you work with some high level athletes, you work with, you know, some high level coaches, high performers. Now, when most athletes come to you out of high school, would you say that confidence is there, or is that something that you have to intentionally sort of help them rediscover? Yeah, what's your experience been like?
There's a ton of kids that need to be reassured of their confidence a lot. They might have it early on, and then reality might hit in football season where they lose it. Or it's always interesting to me because the first year that a kid's in college, they come out of high school and they're the highest recruited kids, and they're the greatest thing in their area for years, growing up their whole life. I mean, they're the all-star. Then they get here and it's like, there's so many good players and there's so many good athletes that are in your same position. Mm-hmm. So it's difficult to deal with at first and try to find your exact place when you've been told you've been the best your whole life. So confidence gets rattled at first. And then they start competing in off-season workouts and they lose and they get beat all the time, and it shakes you. So there's a reason why we compete every day. It's because if you didn't get your way on Monday, you got another opportunity on Tuesday and then Wednesday and then Thursday. So it's just like second nature to just run right at stuff. But yeah, strength coach, I mean, I got to be there for a lot of kids that are going through stuff because they don't get their way a ton more than they get their way. And there's always kids in my office going through stuff that I had to go through too. So I'm happy to help them and happy to coach them through it. And that's probably one of my favorite parts of the job, just using stuff that I've had to deal with in my own life to help them now.
And that is something that again, listening to you on a number of different podcasts, number of different interviews, is I love that you talk about that. Like I've heard you reference a number of times that, I'm not going to ask the players to do anything I haven't done myself, whether it's a workout, whether it's, experiences you've gone through. Now, and I'm a firm believer that's every great leader says that, right? Like you have to be, what I often say is you have to only preach what you consistently are willing to practice yourself. So what have you noticed as a great leader? Like why is that so valuable for a leader to be able to do that, to only be willing to preach what they consistently practice?
It's just the respect thing. Like if you go, like the hardest thing to gain from someone else is their respect. That's why I always say like it's the greatest gift someone can give you is their respect, because it's so hard to earn. And the only way you do that, like for example, like the first time I meet kids, no matter what head job I've ever had, I've interviewed every kid and asked them 25 questions about their life. And it's helped me so much just by getting to know them on a personal level. And then beyond the personal level, they know I'm doing their workout before they even arrive. So it's like a respect thing. And I'm not trying to, like, I give them a message of the day every day. If they're on, if it's a lift, if it's a run, whatever, I'm giving them something from my life, a mistake, a flaw, a habit that I'm going through or whatever, parenting, being a kid, mindset through when I was their age, all that stuff. So then they know, like maybe the first few, they're like, all right, he's going to give us another one. But after a while, it's all they really remember. Mm-hmm. It's like what they call about 10 years later. And they're like, man, I miss the messages. I miss all, it helped me a lot, and that's the coolest part. But you got to earn their respect or you'll never be remembered by any of them.
And it's interesting you share that, right? The whole respect thing is, talking with a number of great coaches, great leaders, they all talk about that. It's really about that respect and building that trust first, right? Because I don't know, it's been very evident in the conversations we've been having in the huddle recently. Yeah. So I'm curious, when we're coming out of an interesting time right now, right? It's just, we'll just say it's just brought up a lot of different challenges, obstacles, and adversity. So I'm curious from your perspective, has the last year and a half really forced you to adapt how you actually work with the athletes, how you develop them on a daily basis? Like how is that evolved?
Yeah, it was so interesting because, when my boss, Coach Collins, called me in March, our spring ball got shut down. We all had to go home. And I'm thinking this is going to be a 2-week thing. It's like, all right, so when are we coming back? And he's like, this thing might last till May. And I'm like, whoa, okay. So the whole month of April, and let alone we're still going through it. But long story short, it was crazy, but it's also a blessing because, I started getting very creative with different ways to find an avenue to still train them. My son was my camera guy on the playgrounds doing workouts with water jugs and backpacks, and my kids were the resistance for me. So I would, make all these videos and post them on our Strength GT account so they could just see them every day. And I ended up being like, I think almost a good part of the country's workouts that day. But yeah, it was interesting. And then I started doing messages on just the phone. If you would have told me 2 years ago if I'd ever be walking in the dark in a full sweat with my phone just saying a message, I would have said you're nuts. But it worked out that way. But it's been interesting because we had to order racks for our indoor just so we could keep kids apart. We had to order new equipment. We had to make like safety loops at practice so guys would stand 6 feet apart when they weren't in. Man, it's just a lot has changed. Yeah, but I try to see the good in it too. And I think a lot of good did come from it.
And you've brought up a word a number of times, in our conversation, and you talked about like blessings, right? Like this has actually been a blessing. So I'm curious from you, how is that idea of choosing to view things as blessings? How does that show up in your life?
It's very hard to see them at first. That's why the biggest blessings come wrapped in difficulties. That's the hardest part. It's the test. It's the real whole test of life. You're not going to get your way after you just worked really hard. How are you going to handle it? Like, how are you going to go tell your wife you might not have health insurance when your baby's due in that week? And then 2 years later, you're telling her the same thing. It's like, I don't know why I got let go, like at certain spots. I just didn't get it at first. But looking back, I'm thankful that I did, because I never would have met so many great people along this journey. And if those people weren't in my life because I got let go, my whole life would be different. Like I would have no great memories with so many great people. And, you talk about being fired twice and then winning National Strength Coach of the Year. I mean, that's like, I can't even describe how that felt, not just to win the award, but just to believe in yourself beyond all that. And then getting this job at Georgia Tech and getting that random call when we were getting ready for bowl practice. I mean, so much good can come from difficult times if you're able to see it. You got to be willing to see it, though. So, yeah, that's what I would say.
And it's really interesting, like, as you share it. And I think that was the one idea which you shared on another podcast that actually made me reach out to you, was I'm like, oh my gosh, I love that idea, right? Like your blessings are sometimes wrapped in what appear to be difficulties. So the one thing I've really gotten from you is obviously, you're very focused on being a servant-based leader, right? About serving the hearts of others. And I think I heard you reference recently that, yeah, strength and conditioning's cool, but it really sounds like it's more about teaching these greater life lessons to develop these champions on and off the field in all areas of life.
That's right. I mean, I understand that I've been given the platform and the keys to these kids' hearts and souls. So I have them every day. I'm with them year round. Like I'm with them more than my family almost. And for me to live through what I've been through and to go through all this stuff as a player and not give that back to the kids that are actually playing now, what a disservice that is. And it's not like I learned that from like a mentor or anything. It's just how I think it should be. No one gave a message of every day like that. It's just something that I've formed a hobby of doing because I feel like it would help me if I were a player, and I never had that. So, but yeah, anything from a parenting side, from a coaching side, from a player side, from a school side, from a mistake, from a regret. It's like, it's just life stuff that if you don't try to share it, you're just missing the whole point of your platform. And I'm trying to still, I mean, every day is a new challenge. Something happens every day around here or any job I've ever had. There's always a kid unhappy. There's always a kid going through something. And there's always a kid that needs to hear those right words at the right time. And some days your message might not hit every kid, and that's fine. You might be white noise to some kids. It's fine. But the one kid that needs to hear it that day is why you give those messages.
So again, the power of consistency, right? Simple, consistent, focused messages every day, day in, day out.
Yep.
Okay. So Coach, I want to be respectful of your time again. I know it's a busy time of the year. I have one last question for you. As we were talking about earlier, challenges, obstacles, setbacks, they are part of the game of life. It's not that we want to expect them, but we just understand that they do come up from time to time. What is one piece of advice you would give someone that's listening, that's watching this, that maybe is going through a challenging time right now? Just that one action that they can take to, create a positive play, to create some positive momentum and get back on their journey to greatness. What would you offer them?
Your life is so much bigger than that moment that you're going through. I think so many people lose sight of the big picture, and they're always worried about like what people are thinking of them. Like your life has so much more purpose than just football, or your life has so much more purpose than that fumble you had, or that mistake that you made and you got a bad grade in class. Like it's just not, like just because you make a mistake early in the day doesn't mean it's going to be a bad day. And then, you know, same thing in a game. It's like you have a bad first half. Well, the second half is there for a reason. Like you don't have to do the same thing. You can come back. It's the same thing in life.
Mhm.
You know, it's like everyone gets frustrated and everyone puts a period in their life where God only has a comma. And, you know, it's all this stuff. It's like one of my favorite pictures is the guy digging for diamonds. On the bottom, he turned around, right? He was right there, though. He didn't realize how close he was. He just gave up. And then there's a guy that's not closer than him, but he's so happy and still thrilled to be going. He's going to get it because he's just going to keep going with a great attitude. So, yeah. Am I going to sit here and say I've had great days all the time, every day? No, I've had some tough times, but I love what I do. And I think for you to really love what you do, you got to go through those failures and those hard work times that you don't get what you want. And your loyalty is going to be tested. Your faith is going to be tested. People are going to tell you all the time, you're not good enough. It is what it is, man. You got one life, though. That's it. It's all we got. So you're going to get what you want out of it or you're not. But it can't be because you just stop trying.
Hey, I love it. I love the simplicity of the message. Just keep moving, keep moving. So, Coach, if anyone wants to follow you on social, again, I love seeing those messages pop up. What is the best way that people can sort of follow and just maybe get those words of wisdom from you? What's the best way to follow you?
At Louis Caralla on Twitter,
Okay.
And then at Lou Caralla on Instagram.
Okay.
And then my email is just louiscaralla@yahoo.com. So,
okay. So I'll be sure to share out all of that in the description on all the platforms. So, Coach, I just wanted to take a moment just to acknowledge you. You know, again, although we've known each other for a short time, I want to take a moment just to acknowledge you for the man you are, the husband you are, the great dad you are, the amazing coach and mentor, but most importantly, the great human being you are. The one thing I've really observed watching you is just understanding that you are just serving the hearts of others by preaching a greater message. Like you're preaching messages that not only apply to strength and conditioning, not only about being a great athlete, but how to be great at life. So thank you for providing those reminders because they've impacted my life and I know they're impacting the lives of others. So thank you for Coach.
Wow. Thank you so much for saying that. That really means a lot. And thank you for having me on. I mean, you're doing a great thing too. So just keep doing what you're doing and you're inspiring people as well. So thankful for you having me on. It really means a lot.
Yeah, definitely. So folks, here's what I'm going to leave you with. Coach dropped so many valuable nuggets of wisdom. But as I often remind you in the huddle, knowledge is potential power. It's the consistent and focused application of that knowledge that actually creates great results. So take one of these valuable nuggets of wisdom and go do the work. And as always, have an amazing rest of your day, and I'll chat with you next time in the huddle. Have a great day, everyone.